We're talking with a man with deep PD and Grand Strand roots. We're visiting with Tom Davis coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Myrtle Square Mall. We're at the offices of the Myrtle Beach Herald-Star, a locally owned and operated weekly newspaper. And we're visiting with Tom Davis. Tom, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Incredible opportunity to highlight your life and so much of what it's meant growing up in the Carolinas, obviously growing up in the PD, living up in the Charlotte area for about 10 years, and now being on the Strand for a little north of 30 years.
Right.
Really exciting to think about someone who can help. Obviously, earlier this week we had Meg Atkinson in, and then Diane Devon Stokes, two folks who spent a lot of their lives in the PD and have now called the Strand home. So it's great to have you in to wrap up the week. Can we talk about growing up in the Florence area? What was that like, Tom?
Florence was a small metropolis in the time when I moved there. It was like a lot of activity going on because of World War II and because of the Central Atlantic Coastline train station had a turntable for trains to turn around, and it was the county seat, and I think it was a great place for to grow up in. Mm-hmm. And there was just a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm. Now, the interstates obviously weren't there yet. So much of Florence is known for being where I-20 ends, and I-95 goes right through there, and surely a lot of destinations have ended up there. A lot of businesses have set foot there because of that. But growing up back then, you still had a lot of folks coming through the area.
Yeah, we did. We didn't have interstates or jet planes or malls, but we had a lot of the farmers, the backer farmers, and other type farmers, and a lot of activity and travel on the train was so much popular. And also we didn't have big highways, but we had Highway 301, which was one of the main ways to go from New York to Miami.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it was age 4 when you moved to Florence, and a place that a heck of a lot of viewers would be familiar with, a place your dad opened up. I think it was Tom's Place at 5 Points.
That's right. Right now, I think there's a shoe store there.
Is that right?
We opened it up about 62 years ago. And there was a barn there for people to bring the mules in, because there was a lot of wagons still going around in the late 30s and early 40s. Mm-hmm. And there was a stable over there where you could have your mule or your horse worked on. But Florence being the halfway point between New York and Miami, there were a lot of people just going through Florence, as well as the local people coming to town and coming to the county seat, going to the county courthouse and the county agriculture building.
Right. And Tom's Place was both a grocery store and a gas station.
Right.
This was your dad and mom running the show there?
That's right. He worked half the time on the train and half the time in the place. When he was on the train, my mother ran the Tom's Place and sold groceries. And, of course, there were times all during those years that you had to have stamps to buy gas.
No.
Or sugar. You had to have stamps issued by the government and to buy shoes and gasoline and oil products. So if you came up and wanted to buy a tank of gas, you better have a little stamp.
You are kidding, Tom.
And things were rationed during World War II.
That's exactly right. Now, when the war was over, your folks opened up a restaurant
on South Irby Street, next to the county agriculture building. And it started out as Tom's Grill, and then became Tom's Restaurant, then Tom's Famous Restaurant. And the reason is because we didn't have TV back those days, and the stars would come to town and be on the stage, and my dad would go up and say, "Come out to my restaurant, I'll give you free dinner." Well, it'd only be about 4 or 5 of them. They'd come and get some Southern fried chicken or some steaks, and photographer from the Florence Morning News would take a picture of them sitting there eating it. The next day they would be gone, but it'd be a big picture worth 1,000 words in the paper, eating at Tom's Famous Restaurant.
Now, and folks knew this around? I mean, your dad was comping the performers who were in town. I mean, that's incredible publicity. You have the benefit of the Florence Morning News covering that on a regular basis.
I just really couldn't get used to seeing who would be in there next.
Right.
Going there, and I started an autograph book, which I've lost several years ago. But there were some real famous people.
Yeah, can you give the viewers a sense of who some of those folks that visited the restaurant over the years?
Well, we were only 10 miles away from the Southern 500, and my dad entered a car in the second. The first one was 1950, and he entered the car in the second 500. And he had a lot of race car drivers he met, and he'd have them come over, like Buck Baker that won the race, and he had Wilbur Shaw that won Indianapolis 4 times, and he was president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He was lying on the floor one night when I came in with a glass of water on his Ford doing a trick of rising up off the floor, Wilbur Shaw. But anyway, he got Sally Rand, the famous fan dancer in the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. She came by around 52 or 53. And then he had the French Angel, the Russian Angel, wrestlers from all overseas in there. And people like from Tennessee, like Johnny Nate Brown, and Roy Acuff and Jimmy Dickens, and a lot of people from the Grand Ole Opry. And started out, he had 8 by 10 he put up on the wall. He had about a 60-foot wall. And before long, he had 2 rows of 8 by 10s along where the booths were. And you would go in and just see people walking down there looking at the movie stars.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And early on, obviously not before it became Tom's Famous Restaurant, when it was Tom's Grill, didn't your dad sponsor a basketball team?
Yeah, he got into athletes, and he liked going to games and baseball games. He had a sign at the park, but they had American Legion Park. And then he said, I'm going to get on a basketball game, but what am I going to do? I'm playing against the City Rec, Department of Coca-Cola team. And so he went to Hannah, Tampico, Atlanta, Johnsonville, and a lot of these people were his customers in the restaurant, because they would be going south, and they'd stop in there at this place when they bring crops to Florence to sell. And he got all these country boys together and found out that they played basketball at night. And he put the team together. And 1947, they won the city championship.
You are kidding.
They were all country farmers. And they played ball at night.
We can see that in this picture here. How amazing that is to think of your dad hand-picking guys from all over the county to come in and beat up a local city team.
That's right. Boys in the southern part of the county, right around there. And Prosters, the Calcuts, the Postons, and Turners. I mean, you know that where they're from when you hear those names.
That is amazing, Tom. Now, did your father have relatives in the Florence area?
He had a brother who worked right next door in the county agriculture building. His name was B.C. Davis. They called him Jeff. And he was blind, and he ran a concession stand with magazines and so forth. And he was picked to draw the jury for about 40 years because of being blind. And this went on all the way up until his death around 1990 in Florence.
Tom, did you ever work in the restaurant growing up?
About 7 days a week. I think we closed Christmas Day, but my dad let me sit in the front booth to do my homework, watch the curve, take delivery orders, and so I had my own private office at the front booth. But it was a lot of fun. The one part I didn't like was when I played football for the Florence High Yellow Jackets. I had to run home and serve the opposing team.
Oh, come on.
They ate. My dad, he didn't comp them, but he gave them a pretty good price on. So every time we played an out-of-town team, they would eat dinner at Tom's Restaurant. And we were working one night, and I served this hamburger steak to this guy, and he looks up and said, "You look real familiar." I said, "Yeah, we were both playing guards tonight on the football team, on the opposing team." But we had some funny moments during those 10 years running that restaurant.
That is amazing, Tom. And you went on to play. You played football throughout high school and stayed on. Were there ever big events in the Florence area, big football tournaments or other things that you were involved in?
Yeah, we had a tobacco bowl every year, and it was all the players They will pick maybe 2 to 4 players from a team, and they would be everybody from the one side of the PD River to play everybody on the other side of the PD River, and they would play in Florence, and it was a real good game, the Backer Bowl, and there were a lot of scholarships issued from that bowl game.
Growing up in the Florence area, were you ever, obviously, you know my interest in scouting and the PD area council, were you ever involved in scouting?
Oh, well, from the Cub Scouts up to the Boy Scouts was one of the favorite pastimes in Florence. And the Boy Scouts, we went to Camp Coker, and we had so much fun there, swimming and learning, getting the bow and arrows and merit badges and this and that. And later on, it helped me become a lifeguard at Myrtle Beach because of getting that swimming merit badge at Camp Coker.
Right.
And then we also went to Camp Nixon, which was held at Cherry Grove. And the Camp Coker was for Boy Scouts, and Camp Nixon was for any young boy that wanted to go to camp.
Any other extracurricular activities? Obviously, 7 days a week in the restaurant. You probably didn't have much time for anything, but playing football and being involved in scouting?
And boxing.
Boxing?
Yeah. We had the Golden Gloves. We had this guy that was a real good boxer. He was semi-pro. His name was Jimmy Calvin. And they had a great big ring set up on the pitcher's mound at the American Legion Stadium. He fought Pappy Gout one year. And then later he worked with Mr. Rainwater Furniture Company in Florence. Had an extra upstairs room, and they converted it to a gym. And we had a ring, we had all the boxing equipment, and we worked there and worked out, and we boxed teams, and we had guys on the team from as far away as Marion, South Carolina. And we had a lot of fun on the boxing team in Florence.
Tom. Well, there was obviously a point in life where you've been in the Florence area a heck of a good while. There was a decision to leave the Florence area, and the first move was to the beach.
Well, my dad said they're widening Highway 301, and they took half of his parking. And he says, I'm going to move either to Gatlinburg or Myrtle Beach. And I said, Dad, let's sit down and talk about this. I was about 16. I said, I don't want to go to Gatlinburg. I want to go to Myrtle Beach.
Wow.
So we moved down here to
You had a lot of say in that.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's, and did your folks open another restaurant in Myrtle?
No, they took over a Mobile Home Park on 9th Avenue South. They operated it for 25 years in Myrtle Beach, and it was a grocery store, gasoline station, and at that time they only had 2 lanes on Highway 17 going through Myrtle Beach. But they kept enlarging it over 25 years, and eventually they were pumping gas in the cars parked on the side on the highway, in the in one lane where you can't drive in. It's a parking lane, but it got kind of dangerous toward the end.
I'm sure. And have you been in Myrtle Beach since you all moved down here, Tom?
I moved here in like 54 or 5, and then was married in 60, moved to Charlotte, and came back in 71, and been here ever since.
What took you to Charlotte from Myrtle Beach in 1960, right after getting married?
Well, when you got, in 1960, if you got married in Myrtle Beach and you wanted a job opportunity, we didn't have very many. And so we put out several resumes, and my wife helped me type up about 40, and I got a book when I got out of Clemson, and it had a lot of company addresses in it, and we found Duke Power Company in Charlotte, and I went to Charlotte and worked for them and worked for IBM part-time, programming computers for Duke Power. We had 1 million customers, and they were getting ready to buy a $1 million computer. And we had to print 50,000 bills a day to get 1 million customers bill doing a 20-day cycle. So that gave me the experience for getting into data processing later in Myrtle Beach.
Tom, you said $1 million computer?
In 1960, Duke Power bought an IBM 7074, and the purchase price was $1 million, which is not a lot today in big mainframe computers, but in 1960 it was.
Golly, I bet.
It's scary.
Yeah, I can't imagine even being near something like that. And were you all able to work on other computers prior to IBM purchasing that one? Did you have experience in other ones, or were you learning from the ground up?
No, I didn't have any experience in the whole 4 years at Clemson. I never saw a computer. I don't think I even heard of a computer. But Duke Power had these card processing machines, punched cards, where you would wire them with boards. You put a board in and would wire, and it would sort the cards out. And it was a real tedious, long-time process of getting the job done.
I bet. In what year did you say you and Nancy moved back to Myrtle Beach?
71.
1971.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can we catch up a little more about y'all's move back to Myrtle Beach in a minute?
Sure.
Great. Stay tuned to More Carolina People. Coming up next with Tom Davis. Welcome back to Carolina People. We're visiting with Tom Davis. Tom, y'all returned to you and Nancy, and now 3 children, returned to Myrtle Beach in 1971 after almost a 10-year stint, a little more than 10 years away. What prompted you to found Davis Computer Services?
Well, there were no data processing companies between Wilmington and Charleston and Florence. And Overy County was growing at that time and needed a system, needed somebody to do their data processing, as well as a lot of other companies in the beach.
So you came back and were locked into something in Horry County, or?
I first came down in 1970 every weekend and programmed this company's computer and put Myrtle Beach payroll on around 1970. And then in 71 I moved down and then went after Overy County to do their data processing after I had Myrtle Beach on the computer.
So, but Davis Computer Services was set up in 71.
It was first Computer Services, and then later around 83 I changed it to Davis Computer Services.
Okay.
But we went in to bid against for Horry County, against other companies, and we received the contract from the county.
Who were some of the other folks bidding against you at the time? Why do you think you, as a startup company, was able to get that bid?
Well, there were like 3 or 4 other companies. One of them was out of Spartanburg, and it was Smith Data Process. And they had all of them had canned systems where they were doing other counties. And I never had another county, but so my main feature was, hey, I will write this system, design, program, you a couple of hundred programs for the way you need it, the way you want it, built to your specifications. And like on my flip chart, I showed a man with a small man with a big suit, a tall man with a tight suit, and flipped the chart over, and there was a medium-sized man with a perfect suit. And that's what I was trying to get over to them. This system will be designed specifically for what you want, the way you want it, and do everything you want.
And you were writing everything from scratch?
Oh, yeah, everything. Design and programmed everything from scratch.
Tom, now, did you have a lot of folks working for you at the time, or was this primarily...
No, it was primarily I was working like the 3 or 4 in the morning to get the job done, and that's the best time when you're programming computers, no interruptions. But no, it took a good 2 years to get everything up and going. Basically a year, and then the other year was for the frills and different things they would think up and add on to it. But it was a real challenge.
What was the county doing before you came on the scene? I mean, were they handwriting? How did that work?
They had the old-timey wired boards, counting machines, and they would plug them in the way Duke Power used to do in 10 years earlier. See, this county was a little bit behind everybody, all companies, a little bit behind large metropolis areas like Atlanta and Charlotte. They were like maybe 8-10 years behind. One of the biggest data processing centers at that time was AVX, had a good data processing center. And the next one would be Georgetown Steel.
Is that right? Did you ever get other municipal contracts?
Yeah, I did the water bills for every city, municipality in this county except Conway. I did the payrolls. We processed payrolls for Surfside and North Myrtle Beach. and a few other jobs for the cities and the county.
Hmm. How long was Davis Computer Services in existence?
Until 92. And actually started in 85, the mainframe computers were coming down to smaller PCs, and the price was getting lower, and finally everybody had their own computers.
Right.
And that's when I finally unplugged it in 92.
Wow. Tom, can you just give us a sense of what that was like, that $1 million computer in 1960, this mainframe in 1960 versus what was coming out, you say, in 1985 or even to the present?
In 1960, it would take almost a small tractor-trailer truck to load the computer up with a forklift, and today you could put the computer in your car and carry it wherever you want.
It's amazing.
It had to have the floors had to be a foot and a half above the floor, so you could have the cables going underneath.
Right.
And the room would have to be air conditioned to suck out all that hot air and keep the temperature at the same rate.
That must have been amazing, bringing the county online in the early 70s. To be a part of that, to be a part of later doing the water billing for all these municipalities, but to be a part of bringing the county online, that must be one of the biggest accomplishments ever.
It is. To me, it was mine, because the city and the county, seeing what they had before and then seeing the automated was, and with the growth going on, and it's a good thing they got online, got on the computer, because after that the growth really started taking place.
Mm-hmm. What have you done in the last? I mean, what did you do after Davis Computer Services was phased out?
Oh well, just maintain some of the properties. I purchased some income-producing properties, and that, and working with the American Cancer Society and the Optimist Club, and judging professional boxing for the Athletic Commission, and a few things, and then taking a few cruises. We go on, which are comped by the cruise ships. My wife and I love these cruises. I do have to spend so many hours in the casino each night for these cruises to be comped, but in using the numbers, and that's been my little sort of like a hobby, is playing with numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Is trying to figure the odds and the probability, statistics, and everything. And of course, when you play in a casino, there's nothing's guaranteed that you're going to walk away a winner, but it is a challenge.
So these cruises are comped because you spend a certain amount of time in. So would this be for anyone on cruises, or just folks who do a good bit of traveling with certain cruise lines or otherwise?
Yeah, if you do a lot of traveling, and you can play in the casino a lot, and you can dedicate 3 or 4 hours a night, then it would be just about for anyone. But not any cruise line, just certain.
Right.
Maybe a couple out of about 15 would do it, you know.
Does anyone go with you on these cruises, Tom?
My wife won't allow me to go without her.
So Nancy's got her hand in these cruises as well.
We took my daughter and her family last November on the Caribbean. They had a great time.
That's fantastic. Where are some of the hot spots you all have visited?
Alaska, and then up in Canada, and Halifax, and Mediterranean, and St. Petersburg, Russia, and all around England, going to Scotland and Ireland. It's so much fun because you don't have to pack a suitcase. Every day you arrive, and the captain says, today you're in Scotland, and the next day you're in France, and the next day in England. And it's, like I say, you don't have to pack a suitcase. Just walk down the game plank. There you are.
That is amazing.
I think if everybody took a cruise one time, they'd be taking a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're visiting with a big promoter of cruises. That's fantastic. What about other, you talked about service with the American Cancer Society. What originally prompted you to get active with the American Cancer Society?
Well, I lost a mother and a sister with cancer, and I gave a lot of blood going up through Clemson and working Duke Powell. I gave blood a lot, and then one time when my mother was needing blood, the Red Cross gave her all the blood they needed because of me being a donor. Mm-hmm. And then hearing a lot about the Cancer Society, I worked with them for 2 years as the county chairman, and I really enjoyed that. Sort of like a payback to help for what they helped my people with. You know?
And Tom, you and Nancy have had 3 children. Are your children here in the area?
Yes, my daughter is Pamela, and Paul is my son Tommy. He runs a restaurant here called Collector's Cafe. Right. And my younger son Steve is in Dallas, Texas doing physical therapy work.
Were you involved with things they were involved in their youth? Were you actively, obviously they were all born, I think you said, in Charlotte. When moving down here, were you involved in some of the youth activities growing up?
Oh yeah, we were really my family got involved pretty good. My daughter was like a cheerleader for the Seahawks. My two sons played for the football team. I coached for about 8 years, little league, and I really enjoyed that. One of the best times of my life is coaching the little boys and watching them grow up through first through the 8th grade and watching them progress. That was a lot of fun.
I'm sure. When we think about some of those big accomplishments in life, when you think about obviously being married, your wife Nancy for 42 years, raising 3 children, even coaching Little League for 8 years, can you think of, it must be difficult to quantify what would be the most recognized accomplishment in your life?
Well, other than having my family, which is to me is the number one, is I think coming into the county and the city and designing and computerizing this county, which is the largest county in the state, land-wise. And the city, it really gives me a good feeling, and I believe that's probably my second greatest accomplishment, behind my family.
Fantastic. We're visiting with a man who brought not only Horry County, but also the city of Myrtle Beach online, who's made an incredible commitment in life to share his experiences in the PD with folks on the Strand and to build a better community. Tom Davis, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for asking me that, Greg.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Tom Davis for taking us down memory lane in the PD. And don't forget to tune in next week as we're coming to you from beautiful Brook Green Gardens.